I was thinking it was 4.
Yeah, they wanted to do 4, which they got a variance on.
Right.
But we had to look into all the fire stuff to make sure we had which is a good thing at this point.
Well, the reason I was saying I thought it was 4 was because the one that we talked about.
Here, is it?
They wanted a variance to go 5.
Right.
And we talked about it, it's like, well, if they had gone 4.
They just got thrown off.
I don't know. Is there anything you gotta prepare for? Well, I was waiting for my colleagues
Too much
to get in
talking.
first, and I was blocking the way. All right, does anybody want to complain?
Mr. Chair, please sit straight.
I expected a much bigger attendance tonight, but evidently, I really did.
The one thing I saw is they were going to come out and support the paper for it.
Y'all ready? We're waiting on. It's 6 o'clock. We'll come to order. Commissioner Safley, will you do the invocation?
Sure. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us. We thank you for this beautiful town that you've provided us with, and pray that, Lord, as we meet and make decisions, that we will make decisions that will further the community and the beauty of our town and the accessibility for those to come. We praise the name of Jesus.
Amen.
Amen. Roll call.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Here.
Commissioner Thorne?
Here.
Commissioner Clark?
Here.
Commissioner Max?
Here.
Commissioner Jordan?
Here.
Commissioner Hawkins? Commissioner Skeen?
Here.
Commissioner Safley?
Here.
Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes of last month's meeting, March 12th, 2024? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve minutes.
Second.
Motion has been, motion for approval, seconded.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Safley?
Aye.
Commissioner Max?
Substain. What was that?
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
All right. All right, old business. The first item of old business is PL 1792, 2587 Jackson Drive variance request for a fence variance to encroach into the front yard setback.
Yes, sir. We were approached by the applicant today, who's requested to put it off for another 30 days. He had a conflict for tonight, couldn't be in attendance.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table the item. I believe that was for to table, for the next month's meeting in May.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Safley?
Aye.
Commissioner Max?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
All right. New business, we'll begin with our rezoning. The first item is PL 1800 at 460 Byhalia Road. Request for a rezoning of 6.5 acres from R6 to office. Mr. Cardozi, will you provide the presentation?
Yes, sir. This is PL 1800, 6.5 acres requested for rezoning tonight from R6 high density residential to O, office. The subject property is east of I-55, north side of Byhalia, section 7, township 3, range 7. The applicant was Joe Lauderdale, is represented tonight by Dr. Seymour. As I mentioned, this is 6.5 acres requested R6 to office zoning. This is a straight zoning and not a PUD or planned commercial. So it does fall on the bulk requirements in the zoning ordinance for office. And so I've included those uses in your staff report and a description of what the office zoning designation is in the zoning ordinance. The future land use map designates this property as activity medical, and there's a short description of that in your staff report as well. And judging by the comprehensive plan and the application, this does conform to that recommendation in the general development plan. I'll read this once for the record, but for the next 3 applications, it is a rezoning request, and so the approval or denial criteria need to be structured around the 3 following questions. How the proposed amendment conforms to the general development plan, why the existing zoning district classification of the property is inappropriate or improper, and what major economic, physical, or social changes have occurred in the vicinity of the property in question that were not anticipated by the general development plan, and it substantially alters the basic character of the area, which makes the proposed amendment to the zoning district map appropriate. And Mr. Lauderdale did provide responses in his application on the 4th page of your staff report, an explanation of that request. I did provide a surrounding zoning map, and as you see, there's an existing office complex for medical on the south end of the property, which is zoned C1 neighborhood commercial. And there's also some adjacent commercial zoning on the north side of the request. And the applicant has requested office zoning because of a future home of the medical complex. With this being base zoning, there is no proposed plan, so the next phase of the project would be a preliminary plat to show the general layout of the lots, and the design is subject to the design regulations for the finished product. There is a general plat of what they're thinking the proposal is going to be of about 6 lots on an internal service drive, but that is still subject to preliminary plat approval. And as I mentioned, there is a site and vicinity map that shows surrounding zoning and the surrounding parcel sizes for context. That concludes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Cardosi? We'll call questions from the audience in just a minute. No question for Mr. Cardosi. Would the applicant please come forward?
Representative.
If you would, yeah, just at the lectern. Dr. Seymour, thank you. Name and address, please.
It's Robert Seymour, 851 Fairway Trail, Hernando.
Thank you. Anything you'd like to add to Mr. Cardosi's? Any questions for the applicant? All right. Is there anyone here who would like to speak for or against this application? Come on. Yeah, if you would, come up, give your name and address, please.
Michelle Nelson. Callaway Cove, a member of the adjoining neighborhood. The neighborhood just had some questions that we'd like related to amongst the plans as they develop. There is a current water runoff problem in the creek, which is Blue Line Creek, which is on the edge of the property that wants to be developed. So we're slightly concerned about the water runoff and the watershed that would come from that without any discussion or any planning around that. Currently, that creek runs under 55. It also butts up to the city land. So we're wondering if we've looked at or if they've talked about that on the plans. We would prefer not to have the neighborhoods flooding because the creek already gets full. So we didn't see that in the plan. I didn't see it on the zoning things I looked in, so that was kind of our first question. The second one was what they were going to do with the foliage and tree area over there. Our current neighborhood, when we did a decibel study, is between 63 and about 73 and a half. We took some decibel measurements. It's a loud neighborhood, we already know that, but we just want to make sure the tree line that's already there developed between the creek and the neighborhoods isn't completely cut down and we're not fair warned. If the decibels were to increase when you do outside yard work, spend time with your family, if it increases over 75 decibels, it would definitely affect our neighborhood and the adjoining golf course, country club, and all those areas around the area, because the trees that are there really absorb a lot of that noise already from Interstate 55, especially with potential for expansion on Interstate 55. We want to keep that in mind if it was rezoned. The other questions we had were if there was going to be any type of electrical substation or anything like that, if that would change the physicality of the neighborhood, if there's traffic control. It sounds like that was already mentioned. It sounds like an internal service drive, not an external service drive across the creek or off of Green Tea, to make sure that there's already a lot of traffic that goes through Green Tea. We do not have sidewalks in our neighborhood, so there's a lot of family people walking and strolling on that street often, all the way up to the country club and up to the adjacent road to 51. I was having a total blank there. Green Tea West runs all the way out to, anybody got me on this one? The road that goes up to Mackinville.
Mount Pleasant by Hilliard.
There you go. Nope, the one behind it.
I hell yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So the road actually goes through all the way. There's a lot of people cutting through to get to 51 on that road right now. So we just want to make sure there wasn't going to be additional traffic trying to cut through out of the new development through Green Tea and then over to 51 or back to Mackinville that way. And then it was just potentially, like the heights of the building, it looks like they were discussing the plans we saw today. They're not to be above 2 stories. So that's reasonable, just to make sure that we weren't going to end up with any doctor's offices that had cooling towers on top of them, anything like that, again, to add to the additional noise in the area. So those are just additional questions we had that we didn't see in any of the plans that we were just hoping to have before they moved forward with a plan, so we knew kind of what was to come. Besides, we did see they staked out the area already, but I did not see the plan top floor.
And we'll give the applicant an opportunity to respond if there are any other questions.
Nope, that was it.
All right.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak for or against this application? Would the applicant like to respond to any of her concerns?
I guess I would prefer to, Mr. Lauderdale, Joe Frank Lauderdale, to handle whatever concerns.
As far as the engineering layout goes?
I don't think any of those that were mentioned are a problem, but I'm sure there's something more official than me, in my opinion, so he can confirm for sure that that's, I think he can answer them more professionally than I could.
Okay.
Okay, Austin, is that, I see a 50-foot buffer along that ditch. Is that a vegetative buffer because it's abutting residential, or what is that?
It's odd, so the current zoning is exclusive of that 50 foot, so it doesn't actually touch Green Tea Boulevard West. There's an existing commercial zoning, that C1 zoning I mentioned earlier is that corner parcel. Yeah. And so their zoning request is backside of the creek. And kind of what Commissioner Jordan alluded to, the kind of the drainage and tree and all this official engineering documents have become kind of with a preliminary plat. Since we're just at the zoning change, he's just requesting to change the land use of that parcel. And there, as shown tonight, this office zone would not touch Green Tea Lake West on that 50-foot buffer that you're mentioning.
It goes to the center of the creek itself, probably, is what it looks like.
That's kind of the property line, isn't it?
Looks like it, yep.
Yeah, like their property doesn't go across the creek, so.
Goes to the
With it
center
being a
line.
blue line creek, I mean, most time, they're not gonna, like, try to put an entrance there and mess with that as much, a little. Yeah, I mean, you know from better than
Yeah.
they, and didn't there some type of studies they have to do about the flow or something if it increases or?
Yeah, the city and the engineering department will decide whether or not there's some kind of stormwater detention to alleviate, the increase in runoff. But that comes later, after this zoning. This is just a really high level. But detailed engineering plans will be developed and reviewed by the city engineer.
Is there anything further? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve, recommend approval of rezoning request by Joe Lauderdale representing the owner of the property, 6.5 acres on 3 parcels of land from R6 residential to O office district. The subject property is located in the east of Interstate 55, north side of Byhalia, in Section 7, Township 3, Range 7. RSS properties based upon the following findings, 1 through 3.
I'll second.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Safley?
Aye.
Commissioner Max?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
The motion to approve is approved. The reason, recommended. Our next item of business is PL 1802, Joy Heath PUD Amendment. Request for a rezoning and preliminary development plan approval to amend the existing PUD for the Joy Heath rezoning. Mr. Cardosi?
Yes, so this is PL 1802. As you mentioned, this is a request to revise the existing PUD, and technically this request is to revise the overall plan that was amended by Toyota by the Board of Aldermen a few months ago, and so I'll get through all those steps and details here in just a second. But Susan Stout is here tonight representing the owner of the property to amend the existing PUD of Joy Health rezoning on the north side of Holly Springs Road, east of McInville, in section 17, township 3, range 7. The original Joy Health PUD was rezoned in 2007 for mixed-use development and senior living facility on the rear and retail frontages along Holly Springs Road. It's immediately adjacent to the Hernando Fire Station and the Lee Summit PUD. The proposed amendments to allow for an indoor soccer facility. This is the adjacent parcel to the Toyota revision that was approved several months ago for the auto body repair on the western side of the site. This would be the eastern 4 acres remaining. The future land use map, the adopted general development code identifies the property as master plan residential medium density, and it does account for modern, attractive personal and professional commercial facilities with access needs at demand location along modern major arterial roadways, and that full description is in your staff report. The 3 discussion criteria are applicable in this as well as the same as the last, since it is a rezoning application. And this is proposed to be a single-phase development in 2024-25. All the renderings you see in your staff report are conceptual, and we would require full design review and subdivision process would be the next step. And so, pertinent to the plan, the building is proposed to be a full brick veneer exterior. The landscape plate on the northern and eastern boundary lines are type 30 to help buffer the facility from the adjacent residential. Being this is a PUD, the parking bulk regulations are a bit design built, so the applicant can propose alternative parking measures. And so they've come up with a parking calculation as they detailed in their staff report, and I'm sure Susan will talk about here in just a second, that they feel is adequate for the facility. And ultimately, it's a bit built out for detention in the rear and for parking on the eastern and northern boundaries. They squeeze all the parking in they can to account for the large facility. The applicant did say that the facility could also be used as a community safe shelter, lending itself to the construction type of full masonry. And Susan, again, can talk about that. And they have presented a project text that would be supplemented to the original PUD. And so at this point, between Toyota and if this is approved tonight, this would supplant the entire bulk regulation of the Joy Health. It'd be basically a whole new PUD with the two new land uses that are presented. Let's see. We did approve, I did include the vicinity map to give you an idea of the surrounding residential and the landscape plate that they presented on the eastern boundary line to give you an idea of the buffer. And we did work with the applicant on shifting the parking to the western and northern side to keep the parking on the opposite side of the building from the neighbors to shield as much of the light and noise as possible for the buffer. We would require a full improvement of Holly Springs Road to match what you see across the street, which would provide for the full cross-section. And the site does have utilities to provide for the proposal. That concludes my staff report. I'm available if you have any questions.
Would the applicant please come forward? And is it Joy Heath or Health?
Health.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a healthcare facility originally for assisted living, and from my understanding, they did not get the certificate of need. That was going to, I guess, make the facility possible, and so that's why it's site vacant.
I felt like when we had the last hearing on the other adjoining parcel, it was Heath, and maybe I just had that in my mind, I don't know. So I apologize, but I misspoke.
That's what I was looking at the last one. I think it is health because the original Lee's Summit had a care facility that was associated with that lot.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
Yes, I'm Susan Stout at 6655 Autumn Oaks Drive in Olive Branch, Mississippi, 38654. And I have a lot to tell you. So Magnolia Sportsplex was born out of necessity. Soccer is exceptionally popular in our community, and our weather often leaves teams with no options for practice. There is a single indoor field available in DeSoto County at this time, and its availability is sparse, to say the least. The proposed building, which you can see the front of right here, would let up to 3 teams practice at once. So to us, it makes sense to put such a kid-safe environment in such close proximity to Fire Station Number 3, Colonial Hills Church, Lee's Summit Park, and next door to the Lee's Summit residential neighborhood. As Austin mentioned, a previous HUD approval was for an assisted living facility, and this building will have parking and drop-off areas with an equal amount of disturbance as was previously approved. It'll be open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. by appointment only, thus maintaining the expected operating traffic and residual ambient noise. As Austin mentioned, there's a 35-foot landscape buffer between the building and the Lee's Summit neighborhood, which you can see there. That will be filled with large oak trees, Japanese maples, pines, black gums, and shrubs to stifle any noise. Next to that is a fire access lane and a sidewalk, which ultimately puts the building 53 feet from the Lee's Summit property lines. There's also a large amount of landscaping to the north of the building to separate it from the church property. A new sidewalk out front would go along Holly Springs Road. The building itself will be 40,000 square feet with a sprinkler system. It will house 2 large fields, 1 small field, restrooms, a concession stand, and an office. There will be a maximum of 60 players at one time, plus coaches. To that end, there will be small bleachers for each field that will seat a maximum of 120 people, thus 2 parents per player. A plexiglass shield wall will separate the bleachers from each field for safety. There will be 5 exit doors from the playing area. It's planned to be built of 4-inch brick and block at the exterior and 12-inch block at the interior. That's 16 inches of reinforced masonry. Outside, we will have 114 parking spaces. Here's what we're all waiting for. Such reinforced masonry construction indicates that Magnolia Sportsplex could be a community safe room. The primary difference between a building's structural system when designed for use as a safe room is the magnitude of wind forces and windborne debris it is designed to withstand. We have consulted the 2020 ICC 500 standard for the design and construction of storm shelters, as well as FEMA P361 safe rooms for tornadoes and hurricanes. We believe the building could house up to 7,500 individuals during a tornado, standing room only, of course. We realize that 5 more water closets would need to be added from the documentation you were given to review, and street parking may need to be utilized in case of emergency. The doors and windows will be impact and wind rated up to 250 miles per hour per code. The doors could be remotely unlocked in case of emergency. We will work closely with a local structural engineer to ensure that all requirements are met. Also, an operations and maintenance plan will be provided per FEMA. The building would be registered with local first responders. It would have an emergency generator, first aid supplies, as well as a large supply of bottled water. Additionally, a safe room must undergo a peer review of design professionals to gain approval, in addition to review by our local authorities. At the end of the day, AJM Group LLC seeks to add value to our community in the way of a safe environment for our children, and also adding more revenue to the city of Hernando, both in taxes and in money spent visiting the city for soccer practices. Magnolia Sportsplex will be an asset to both Hernando and DeSoto County as a whole. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant?
So I know you gave a wind rating for the windows. Do you have a, and maybe I missed this, do you have a wind rating for the structure of the building itself?
For our region, it's 250 miles per hour winds that we have to be prepared for. And that's the strictest in the country.
And as far as lighting, I know you kind of mentioned a little bit of this because this was what one of the, somebody reached out that lives right there. They back up to that property in Lee's Summit. And one of the concerns they had was light pollution coming over there because they had the same thing that came over from Plumway Hills when it was built. So they were asking, what kind of lighting would be there and if that would be a problem for them.
Well, the city's regulations, we're required to provide a site photometric plan when we submit our documents. And obviously, all of the rules would be followed such that no light spills beyond our property line. And beyond that, with the 35-foot landscape area that's going to be there, I think we'd be hard pressed to get light through all of that.
Okay. Is there any current tree buffer or anything right there between Lee's Summit and the property?
I think it's clear.
No. It's clear, it is clear. Okay. So what you put in will be the buffer.
It will be, I don't know if you have that landscape plan, but it's pretty extensive.
Yeah, I just showed that. It looks like it's cleared already.
What are the age of the trees you're planning on putting in there initially? Because that determines its height. So if you put in 3-gallon trees, I mean,
Oh, I understand.
they're pretty small.
Pine trees, right. There is the landscape plan, and there is.
Yeah, I was just looking at a couple of the trees and their growth rate about 1 to 2 feet a year. So if you start at about 6 feet, how tall is the building?
The building is just under 20 feet, if memory serves.
It'll be 4 or 5 years before the trees would meet the height of the building.
They should at least be as tall as the.
The reason I'm asking is how do we balance that? Maybe this is a question for the city. How do we balance the photometric study against the growth rate of trees to the height of the building for light to go over into the residential
Photometrics
section?
Based on no trees. The light spillage would be.
Based on no trees?
Right.
Okay.
So the buffer yard, we require caliper size is what we measure by, so usually 2.5-inch caliper is what we require on street trees and buffer yard. So it's a variable height, but that's a pretty big tree to get planted in, usually 6 or 8 feet tall. And so the photometric on that side of the building would be shielded with 90-degree lights, so it would be straight down. And then the parking lot lights, that's where that photometric would be.
Okay. The only other question I had was the entrance. Is there any, maybe again, another question for the city. Is there any concern with only a single entrance going in and kind of funnels into the side of the building for emergency vehicles or heavy traffic when you got all fields filled up? How do you there's no through traffic?
They did propose a fire lane on the eastern side, it's kind of hard to see, but.
Yeah, I see it, yeah.
That's the circulation pattern, is the fire lane, and then the drive aisles would be 25 feet in width, so it'd be.
Two lanes.
Dual fire, dual access.
Okay.
You said there would be some changes on Holly Springs there.
They'd be required to improve their section of Holly Springs. Their lane and a half, the spill out lane that you see, and then curb and gutter, and then the sidewalk behind that.
So people going in will be able to kind of get off, not hinder all the normal
It'd be a
flow.
turning lane or something?
Be a turn lane.
It would be, just like you see in front of Lee Summit and Jefferson, that little, it's a lane and a half of pavement. I think in theory, it's supposed to be designed to be a turn lane, but it's really just a washout lane until the road's fully improved. And so it will have access to get over to turn before you come in.
So traffic going west would be able to get over in it and turn, but the eastbound traffic would stop and hold traffic, especially in the afternoons, people coming home from work, and then at the same time that people are going there for practice.
Yes, until it's fully improved, that's true.
So when you say fully improved, what's that plan?
So once this and the adjacent lot, Toyota would be improved to the fire station, and both lanes have curb and gutter for their full cross-section, it'd be restriped to have a turn lane in the middle, and then those washout lanes would be utilized for travel. But as development works, it kind of segmented until it's all done, so we can do a full traffic. And so it won't be done yet, but they'll do their share of what is required.
So Toyota's still going to be, you say when Toyota does their portion.
So the applicant here tonight for the soccer facility, their responsible portion is just in front of their facility, so technically between the fire station and this facility, there would still be a gap of no improvement. And so that lane wouldn't exist until they improve. And so once that curve is all the way through and that lane is all the way through, that's when the restripe can go for the full turn lane.
It is backwards, isn't it?
There's a couple of ways to look at it, but yeah, it's tough to do it all at once. You can do a payment in lieu and just hold the money in the bank account and not get any improvement at all. And then, or if development was quick enough, it kind of all just, like McIntyre does.
Yeah, it's still going to be $20.
Walmart.
Well, that's ultimately because I guess the developers are paying for it, not the city, so we're waiting on them to do it. My biggest concern is just, I'm sure everybody is too, is the parking, the number of parking, because it's been such a issue at the other sports facility that we have here for basketball and volleyball. Because with it being on Holly Springs Road, there is just nowhere for overflow parking. So yes, ma'am.
Well, it has been designed such that there really can only be 60 players in there at once. And if each of them come with one car, I mean, that's 60 cars, and we have 114 parking spaces.
But didn't you say you had
As Austin said, we maxed out all the parking that we could possibly get.
Right, yeah, just,
Would you say the spectator seating was the bleachers?
Yes, and there is literally two seats per player. So there's 120 seats in bleachers for 60 kids.
Will there be, I guess, any competitions in there such that there'll be more spectators to
I
show?
don't think so. It's really intended just for practice.
So just to clarify, because we're talking about this. So this is going
That faces Holly Springs Road.
right beside Lee Summit, and then there will be the gap between that and the fire station. Is Toyota still putting that facility they were talking about in that gap?
As far as I know, it's still happening, I just don't know when.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions for the applicant? Maybe something else later, but is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against this application?
Yeah, I'd like to see.
Give my name.
name and address, yes, sir.
Nick Harris, 1245 Heritage Lake Drive, Hernando. So I just got a call this afternoon from a buddy of mine that knows the applicant, and I've never met the guy in my life, but I have 3 girls that play soccer. One plays for the freshman high school team. That's a big challenge for us, is finding a place for the girls to train. You know, we have nowhere to train. Like on a day like today, we can't go to the fields because they're wet, right? So I'm all for it. You know, we have to go to South Haven, Olive Branch, other jurisdictions for soccer, micro soccer complex in Carville, which is just a haul, and it creates a strain on me and my family and a lot of the families in Hernando that have girls or boys that play soccer. You know, we have to get off at work, come home, pick them up, drive 45 minutes to practice. And this is a fabulous idea. We've been waiting for this for a long time, my girls and us. So, and I know a lot of the other families in Hernando, so I'm all for it. Just wanted to give my 2 cents. So, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? There's no one else here to speak for or against this application. Do I have a motion?
Make a
Make a
motion
motion
to,
to approve.
go ahead.
Sorry. Motion to recommend approval. The Board of Aldermen of a rezoning requested by Susan Stout, representing the owner of the property, for a zoning map amendment, preliminary development plan approval, revision to the Joy Health PUD located on the north side of Holly Springs Road, east side of Mackinville Road in Section 17, Township 3, Range 7, based upon the following findings, 1, 2, and 3.
Commissioner Clark?
But we didn't get a second.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
think.
I jumped
We had
the
2
gun.
want to make a motion, but we didn't get a second.
I'll second.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Well, I was trying to write something else down. Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Safley?
Aye.
Commissioner Max?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
The motion passes. All right. The next item on the agenda, PL 1803, Ironwood PUD, request for a rezoning and preliminary development plan approval for a PUD.
Yes, sir. PL 1803, as you mentioned, is Ironwood PUD. It's a request for a zoning map amendment and preliminary development plan approval. So located on the north side of Green Tea Road, on the west side of Mackinville, in sections 31 and 32, Township 2 and Range 7. Applicant's NFT development, represented tonight by Design Shop Memphis. It's an interesting piece of property, as it was originally included within the right-of-way of I-269 and owned by MDOT. It was subsequently sold to the developer, and so to my next point about the future development plan, it was not originally included in the general development plan because it wasn't a parcel owned for development, and so it was not classified. A small piece of the property was listed as activity residential, activity retail. The purpose of which is auto-oriented and commercial districts activity categories to provide for commercial and office development, primarily focused on the needs and convenience of motorists without losing pedestrian access and connections. And so, with a portion of the property being auto-oriented commercial district, it does meet the intents of the comprehensive plan. The 3 criteria for zoning approval are listed in the staff report, and the applicant did provide extensive responses to each of those 3 questions of how they feel it does merit the warrant of a rezoning. A little bit about the plan. There are sites in the plan for 3 hotels, an associated retail bay, and 1 convenience store at the corner. Access is limited to 3 service drives off of Green Tea Road. And they did center the development generally on the eastern side of Old Mackinville to kind of limit its visibility and intrusiveness to some of the neighbors along the golf course. And so most of the development is centered along the interstate for the taller buildings, and most of the commercial developments on the eastern side of Old Mackinville. Under their permitted uses, they generally followed the C2 commercial district. It's my understanding that they're willing to strike some of the uses, and they may be talking about that tonight. But the permitted uses in the site were centered around the city's zoning regulations for C2. The bulk requirements are listed in your staff report, and the hotel sites and out parcel sites are listed as a 6-story, 65-foot maximum height, which is something a bit common we've seen in other hotel sites, but just in the bulk regulations, with this being a PUD, those setbacks and height requirements and all that kind of are set in this document, so that's pertinent information to look at. They did include design precedent imagery, and there are some design elements that go above and beyond our design regs for the masonry exterior on the hotels, and some of the design elements for some of the out parcels, and there's precedent imagery for some of that. The road types are listed in your staff report on page 12, the applicant's proposal on the mix of public versus private roads, of the delineation of the two. Sometimes there's a bit of confusion of what parts of these sites are publicly maintained versus private. And so at our request, the applicant did provide a detail of what is what, and so there's no confusion of down the road of who maintains what within these commercial districts. The phasing plan is listed in your staff report as well. It's proposed in phases 1, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, and phase 4, moving east to west. And the primary branding of the applicant is the Marriott brand. And so in the building topology portion of the staff report, you see some of the brand standards and then what they've presented with their design regs and how that fits in with present imagery. So generally speaking, this is a PUD, but it's focused on all commercial uses. And so there is common open space listed on the western side of this parcel, but it's primarily a commercially focused PUD. I did include a proposed motion, and then also you can see a vicinity map and an aerial map to give you an idea of the surrounding neighbors and then the frontage of the interstate for the visibility of all the frontages. We did ask them to take a close eye to both the frontages of Green Tea Road, I-69 and McAville, because it will be a very visible site from all angles, and so they presented their precedent imagery to kind of show that. That concludes my report, and design shops here if you've got any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Cardosi?
I have one question. So as far as like the hotels there, are there any formulas y'all use? Because I know we've talked a lot about hotels here recently, that two at the other location on 69 and Getwell. These are three. The other one we'll be covering tonight, and then we already have existing ones. So is there any formula that kind of governs or supports how many we need in this area?
I don't have that answer. I think it's a market-based decision. Our zoning ordinance addresses it just where we have commercial districts where it allows or doesn't allow hotels, but I don't know why.
And I know that the zoning dictates that, but just wasn't sure if there were any numbers that supported what kind of traffic was driving into that need, so.
Will the applicant please come forward, state your name and address?
I'm TJ Cates. I live at 230 Green Tea, right at Green Tea and Highway 51, which is about a half mile west of this location. It's kind of a scrappy piece of land, kind of a piece of pie that nobody got. We picked it up from the MDOT. We came up, as you can see on our boards over here, a really pretty development. It's going to be a walking development. It's going to be a really good first impression. Coming out of Memphis, coming into Hernando. One thing that I want y'all to know is that last year we got a Marriott approved. You're asking about too many hotels, which is a smart thing to ask about. We did get the Marriott flag. We got approval to put in a hotel. There was a spring under it, is back behind Domino's. So we kept the flag, which is what they call it. We kept the Marriott, which is a really super strong, really impressive. One thing that they do require us is having walking. So we've been talking to some pretty nice restaurants that are talking about coming in, some upscale retail. We've got a lot of things that we don't want, so we can play a strike game. If y'all see some things you don't want, we probably don't want them either. And actually, they probably can't afford to buy the land or lease the buildings from us once we get started. So, we did have a neighborhood meeting, which I'm a big fan of that, and it does slow down some of the people that want to come up here and say what they don't want about it, because I would rather they get to have a conversation. And we did. We spent about an hour, and I know we're only required to go at about 500 feet. But we went out to every neighborhood, up and down Green Tee, to the big neighborhood, to the big lots, the golf course. We went all the way down the street, a lot of rentals. I actually went and bought some signs and put signs up and let everybody know about it. So we did have some people turn up. We had a couple investors that are developers in that area, and they had some great questions. The main thing is about what are you going to put in there. We want to make sure it's not competition. We're not putting in any retail, which I think Mr. Perlesi says we could, but is the zoning wouldn't. We're not doing retail. I mean, we're not doing residential. Okay. So it's going to be, everybody comes up here, everybody says it's going to be nice and beautiful. I'm telling you, it's going to be really nice and beautiful. We've had some pretty big companies that have contacted us. We've sat down with them in the past couple of months and talked to them about it. And just because they want to get land from us, doesn't mean that it's going to fit our big image. The big struggle, like the presentation for the soccer thing, I used to coach ball in South Haven. We ran into a lack of places to practice to jump on what she's doing. That's a sense of community. That's a reason that people move here, because you're going to have something like that. I'm also a first responder, and I really appreciate the fact that they're going to build it under the code for safe rooms. All that's going to be really good. And that's also going to piggyback on what we're doing here. The reason that this is going on in Hernando, everybody's coming to Hernando. The flip side of that is Hernando has growing pains in a pocketbook that's not as heavy as Olive Branch and South Haven. It's just not, because of the retail and the thing. I figured up the math, and Smells could figure it up. We pay $2 a night, I believe. Is it 1% or $2 a night per hotel room?
We do have a tax, I'm not familiar.
Okay, let's just say it's $2 a night, and we have 100 rooms, which is going to be more than 100 rooms in each building. That's $300. We're looking at a $100,000 check that's going to be written to Hernando every year that y'all don't have right now. So it is going to be an income producer. It's going to be economic development. And the way that we're going to utilize this is right off of 55 and 269. We're hoping to get the people that, for what reason, they don't want to stay downtown Memphis. They want to go to the FedEx and they want to have their meetings and their ball games and everything, but they don't have a safe place to stay. And when they do, what do? They get gas, they go to the restaurants and they eat, and they run to Walmart and they take their kids and get T-shirts and stuff. So we're hoping that more than the $100,000 a year that we're hoping to make off of the hotels and the hotel motel tax, we're hoping that they do stop for 24 hours to 48, especially the ball games. When they go to Snowden Grove, maybe they'll stay with us. That's kind of my pitch. But I don't know if anybody has any questions. We have really smart Scott Guidry over here, and we also have an engineer. If you have technical questions, but mine's more about the economic development.
And you said that all the restaurants you're looking at are all, you're focused on really upscale.
Well, we're able to go for bigger, nicer restaurants, which is what everybody wants in the county, because we've got the 269. We could pull people from Lewisburg, Olive Branch, South Haven. We could pull people from this lower middle part of DeSoto County, and they can come here and eat. I did a hosting thing in Olive Branch last summer, and since we lived down here, we came down to eat, but Paris closed, which I love Paris. And then went to Fratello's, and then Windy City, they'll close their kitchen like at 8:30 to 8:45 on a Saturday, but you can still make all that money if you're open and you have a nice restaurant. Well, we'll be a destination, but we're not going to over traffic because there's not going to be any residential. So I know you're talking about a roundabout, you're talking about a red light, and that's going to happen. I spoke with Alderman Robinson, and he said he really wants to get that before the school sets in. So I know that you have a lot of churches in the schools, but this will actually be writing checks back to you, which will be good. I think it's a perfect use for that land. I've seen that piece of land for the past year or two. I think it's going to really make it look nice.
So speaking of traffic, has there been a traffic study done on this?
I think y'all done this traffic study. Is the city done
There's
one?
one underway at the corner of Green Tea and McInville. NDOT's actually doing it for the roundabout. Or
Right.
But it's probably not going to include this.
Right there is a roundabout.
Not that one, but the one on the eastern sides where they're doing the traffic study, but I don't know if it accounts for this as well, because it's not approved.
I'm sure it wouldn't account for it.
So you got one retail building, is that one retail, or is it more like, bays with multiple retail?
It's not gonna be like a strip mall. It's gonna be more like you see in bigger cities where it's larger shops and things like that. It may be a restaurant. We're gonna be able to have moving parts. Like one of the national chains that reached out to us last week, instead of wanting 2 acres, they wanted 3 acres. So we're able to move it because it's on paper, and it's easier to move things around on paper. But we just want to make sure all of you are happy with the possible things that will come in there. We don't want to do vape shops, we don't want to do cannabis, we're not that kind of person. We want to do a little bit upscale, we want people to come here, and they don't have to go stay in Midtown, they don't have to stay in downtown Memphis.
So
If
this,
one of those restaurants not a Chick-fil-A, you might get run out of town.
We may or may not have sat down with them, with Brandon a couple weeks ago. We can't say anything, but what do y'all think about it? I mean, is everybody pro Chick-fil-A or?
I have no idea.
Hernando happened this once. That matters. Okay. All right. If you have any more questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them. If not, I can ask Mr. Scott if he's ready to come up.
yeah, I mean, I have some, like, it may be, not economic impacts, but the engineering and the layout, like, number of parking spots, like how many rooms, I mean, because, and the building heights and stuff, because I see 6 stories, but, I mean,
We've been meeting with Mr. Cardos in the planning department, like 4 or 5 solid nights.
These are 53-foot, not counting the
I don't think we have any
parapet wall.
6-foot,
we don't have any 6
6-story,
No, we got four stories, not 6.
in Hernando.
My name is Scott Guidry, offices at 431 South Main Street, Memphis, Tennessee.
Can you speak a little on the building height or the number of floors and number of rooms and stuff on the hotels?
We can. The current plan right now for each of the 3 hotels is to be about 100 rooms. We'd like at least one of the buildings to be 6 feet, one of the hotels, 6 stories as opposed to 4. We think being on the edge of the interstate, it sort of allows itself to have a higher stance that can be seen from the interstate. So that's the plan right now. Phase 1 that was read earlier is actually on the right-hand side of the plan where the convenience store is in the first hotel, and then the road work that happens, that's needed to get to those. We think that's a 4-story hotel just to start with.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know of a 6-story hotel on the interstate in South Haven
The brewery in Horn Lake is a 6-story.
from 1985.
Point of reference.
I mean, all the new ones, though, are 3 or 4. The jury's been there probably since before I was like, I just think everything that we've been seeing and that I see being built, constructed around the county is
What's the,
4-story.
What's the ordinance on a PUD for height?
It's defined.
The local requirements are defined by the applicant, and so we don't have a max building height in PUD. It's kind of what they designed into the plan text.
It's with the application.
That's right.
But generally, in the city, not in a PUD, it's 35 feet, correct?
Correct.
Absent of variance.
Correct.
Well, then what do we do? The parapet wall then goes to what, 53, I think, after that? I can't remember.
Yeah, well, it was 55, 53,
53,
something like
something
that.
like
But they were all like 4 stories,
stories.
and then the parapet.
And then
on
the
top
parapet
on that.
We would revisit all that after the rezoning anyway, right?
No.
This is for a
No,
PUD.
this is
This is for a
approving the
PUD.
PUD.
Yes, the height requirement was in there,
It had to be discussed now.
yeah, like if it's anything above that, it would have to come back. Anything below that would be allowable by right, they could build it.
It's in here, proposed as 6 stories.
If you approve it tonight as it's proposed, it's going to be for a 6-story.
Yeah.
And you can limit it to only one of the buildings, you could limit it to none of the buildings, you can recommend to vary that height. It is flexible, being this is the plan text and development plans, this is kind of a build to suit, so if it's.
And I guess that would be my question, is the 6-story, is that a request or is that a mandatory?
No, it's
Is
a
that-
request.
Yeah.
It allows us to build a smaller footprint, perhaps have more green space around the building. Also, because it's on the interstate, we want some of that height so people can see it. What our knowledge of construction is when you get above those 4 stories, it changes the construction type. You end up with a better structure. You end up with a taller ground floor. So those are the kind of things we're looking for, is to have let this hotel have a bit more stature than what you typically see. The reason you're seeing a lot of 4 stories, they can build them all out of sticks, out of wood framing. It's pretty low cost, as far as the hotel goes. But once you get above that 4th story, you have to have a plinth underneath it that holds those stories above. We could also go to 5, maximum parapet height out at 65. We try not to, as far as architecture goes, we try not to limit the parapet height because we want all that to hide any mechanical systems that are above, so we cap that. It kind of starts messing with the floors. And we also, like I said, we want that higher ground floor to get a little more head height as you go in. That was the reason for the higher, the increase in storage.
So it just seems like,
5-story living is what you were saying.
and how many rooms in like a 4-story
Roughly
hotel?
100.
How many in a 6-story?
10.
So the same number in a 4-story and a 6-story?
Yeah, the footprint would change.
85 rooms is pretty common in a 4-story.
And, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. You said you went out to all the neighborhoods? Sorry, yeah. Did you have any feedback from the folks over at Fairview Point, right across the street, about the sight line
We were
with the
really
hotel?
surprised about that because our other one that we had behind the Domino's, people were kind of afraid somebody's gonna see me in my backyard drilling and stuff. We didn't catch that at all this time. Really, but where it's sitting, if we were like there right now, oh, go ahead and show you. There's not really there's the gravel pits, all this stuff over here. So there's really just this pop-up neighborhood and.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about right
Yeah,
there.
I think a predominantly amount of these is rentals. I did put our core plus signs up there, so I don't even know if these people showed up. I think that we may have some renters. There may be online for like a year or so, and we're 9 months before something will actually happen, so we didn't really have that. And what he's trying to tell y'all on the height thing, which makes sense because it's a Marriott, which is a big deal, is if you can get a little bit taller, we can get a taller entrance, and entrance is grand when you come in. It's not like if you approve like 4 stories and, okay, great, y'all can have 4 stories, then you get block, and everything's the same. But you know what a different feel it feels when you go into a lobby and it just looks nice. So that's what he's talking about.
I do have one question about the uses, the permitted uses. Because it does have cannabis testing and all, it's just basically everything that's in C2, right?
Those
So,
are 100, isn't it?
I'm sorry. I didn't.
There's 65 uses in C2 currently written, and we've reduced those down to 33, I think. So we did take some things out that just didn't fit the site, like a lay-down lumberyard and some things that just would never work there.
So these are all pretty, you've gone through these things, and this is really what you want.
Reduced them about halfway. The cannabis ones, we pulled in, we took them out, we put them back in, we took them out, we put it back in. We don't know how much, as far as legalities go, if we can say, as a landlord, if you can come into the place or not. We'd certainly lean on you guys for that. We're indifferent on those facilities.
I think 1,000 feet radius from
School.
and I
and
think
church.
that's gonna fall pretty close, so we have put that in the cancel out.
That's all I was just thinking, that's awful close to that school.
Yeah, it's too close to the school. So,
I'd vote to take it out.
yeah, that sounds great, guys.
So take out 22, 23, 24, or 25?
25, yeah, 22 through 25.
Cannabis related, sure.
Okay.
What are commercial amusements? I don't really know what that is.
Like a, what number?
26.
Arcade?
Commercial.
Maybe like an indoor recreation facility, like the bounce houses and aerial parks, I don't know.
Arcade.
Well, there's recreation centers at number 20. It says arcade at number 20.
The VR location. VR, video game.
Oh, like virtual reality thing too. Yeah. Yeah, my biggest concern is the traffic study like, I know Austin said the city is doing one for Mackingville and that interchange, but, or MDOT is or somebody, but I don't think it includes this development with potentially 400 room hotel plus restaurants, and that's a ton of traffic on that intersection. And it's right down the street from elementary school. And then utilities, I guess, I don't think there's water or sewer or anything available there.
We're having struggle with sewer. We're gonna have to go all the way down to Gatorade. That's gonna be like $250,000, that's on us.
But the water is gonna have to be upgraded too, right?
The water's already up there, but the sewer's not. We met with, Mr. Joe Frank a couple times, and he pulled all that up for us.
But the water wouldn't have to be upsized?
It's a 12-inch line at Mackaville now.
Oh, it is?
And it would
Okay.
have to be, for fire protection alone, it would have to be, if it's not that, it would have to be upgraded
Right.
by the applicant.
Okay.
Remind me again, where's the traffic study at? Right there at that intersection, east
One
corner?
on the way is this one, at Mackaville and Green Tea.
Yeah,
It's got
okay.
a lot of intersection, and it's within the warrants of MDOT's interchange, so MDOT's leading a traffic study. But, if it's approved, of course, we'd send this to them as well. But the high school, and then there's a lot of moving parts with Madison Lakes on that intersection alone, so something needs to be done whether this goes or not.
Yeah. Some sort of lighting and stuff too. It's really dark right there. When you get off the interstate, there's like no lights. MDOT didn't think through that.
I suspect this is subject to waiting on MDOT to finish their study. Because if they decide to put a traffic circle there, that impacts your design.
I don't think they would
Which one?
revise their study.
No, I'm talking, they would have to revise theirs.
We haven't started one yet, we want to.
They're showing no access, because MDOT's not gonna permit any curb cuts to Mackaville, so all their access would be to Green Tea. They may
Okay.
have to shift their easternmost entry down a bit, but within the limits of the intersection, I think they're clear of the right of way.
You got 3 entrances, correct, off of Green Tea?
But no traffic light or anything going on to Green Tea out of any of those entrances?
There's not one plan for on our side.
I know this is just a rezoning, but is there a second entrance plan for the convenience store? Or just coming off of Mackinville, or is it just all off of Green Tea? All entrances are off Green Tea?
MDOT, of course, when we talk to them, they don't want to do anything to slow down the
Right.
exiting traffic. Especially around the schools, so.
I like that. I mean, I think that's ideal. It slows everybody down. They have to pull onto Green Tea in order to access it.
Roundabout will slow you down.
Seems like I remember with the other PUDs that we've seen over the last year or so. I mean, I don't know, I'd just be
I think they all
more
have 3.
comfortable with the traffic study, like coming out, because we don't know what the traffic on Green Tea, especially with the traffic coming from AWG is over to 51's is a mess, and we don't know about, seemed like, this is a whole lot of traffic coming in and out of that.
Anything's gonna be busy there. I mean, this is gonna be a high vis right off the interstate, so whatever's gonna be there, it's gonna be high traffic.
Right, but it seems like we need to know, like, if they're gonna do the necessary traffic improvements for it,
Like what kind of improvements?
Well, whatever the traffic study would show. I mean, because they would say, this, you're gonna need a red light during this time, or different,
Improvements to Green Tea.
Improvements to Green Tea, mainly.
Yeah.
Because that's where all the access is on Green
I
Tea.
think before all those trucks got allowed to go up and down Green Tea, that they should have, it'd be nice to have them redirected, but then become somebody else's fault. They didn't go too close to the middle of it, go somewhere.
I think there might have been plans for something else initially for that, but I don't know what happened. But like I'm saying, with us adding, you got 400 hotel rooms, roughly three, plus all the restaurants and gas stations, and, I mean, there's gonna have to be some improvements on Green Tea.
I have a question. I'm interrupting.
Yes, sir.
What if we did an extra lane and that we have a turn lane without slow down traffic, you think? Or we had like a lane that was cut in a little bit?
Oh, I think that's gonna have to happen no matter what.
Is there any plans in the city to improve Green Tea at all?
It's gonna have to be. I mean, just like you saw in front of the Gatorade Fieldhouse, kind of lending to our last conversation about
A turn off?
the turnoff lane, what you see the Gary Field House will be the ultimate cross-section on both sides of the road, all the way down to 51.
But in something like this, when we need a center lane for both sides, turn on.
There would be a turn lane eventually, once it's fully improved. And so the piece of Madison Lakes that's here, this side's actually already improved. And so, you know, you might, I mean, it really depends on the traffic study. If it warrants better light and a turning lane, or if it requires maybe 2 lanes of traffic versus a light. Because, you know, a lot of times the traffic studies don't tell us what we want here either. It's like if there's maybe not enough north and south traffic on the old Mackinville to justify a light, that, I don't know, I don't want to speak for the traffic study, but I think it might be warranted.
I'm just thinking the east-west traffic between Old Mackinville and New Mackinville. That's where people are gonna stop, slow down, turn in, turn out. You got 300 cars, let's just say 200 cars on average a day. That's turning in and out of that facility between those 2 roads. That's where it's gonna jam up. Not to mention the through traffic that's just trying to get over to the interstate from Highway 51. So that's my concern right there. It's kind of narrow right through there.
So if it was wider with a turn lane, it's definitely would help out.
Absolutely. Yeah, the turn lane would be required on the north side of Green Tea to limits of the development. That's just
Right.
subdivision regulations. But
Right.
the above and beyond, I guess, would be subject to a traffic study, if that's what it is.
And would that be picked up in the engineering review and the development of the plans?
The traffic study, the requirement for one, typically it's required by the board, like if they see it fit, like they'll approve it contingent on improvements to Green Key, subject to a traffic study. I just don't know about that information.
Kind of puts us in a pickle to approve with a lot of unknowns. Maybe I'm not seeing it.
The thing too is we're phasing this out. We're not gonna immediately have 3 hotels. We're doing 1 hotel at the beginning, and we're gonna phase the project out. So we're not gonna have this time next year. I mean, it's gonna be 9 months, 9 to 12 months before we even begin our serious construction, and it takes a while to build hotels. So you're looking, I would imagine, a year and a half out. A year and a half to 2 years out. So all these things that you're concerned about, they're gonna fall into place with the Green Tea improvement, with the roundabout, with the traffic study.
Well, I mean,
But the green tea improvement would be on you guys if we had the traffic information now and not the city of Hernando later.
and like I say, something's like, certainly before this development, I know that it's on the mayor and the aldermen and stuff, that's their top priority is that Green Tea and Mackinville intersection right now. That's why they're doing the study. Like, that's certainly got to be done before this development, in my opinion, even.
Or can it just be written into this approval that regardless of traffic study, that improvement will be made, which they would make that?
They have to follow or abide by the findings of any traffic study?
Yeah, y'all can recommend anything to the Board of Aldermen.
Improvements to green tea that are indicated by a traffic study to be provided by the developer.
Yeah, you can recommend that.
That'd be the way to go, so just slow their development down.
Yeah, we don't want to slow it down. It's a good
Yeah.
development. It's just, you know, our position is we have to think 5 years from now.
Yeah, well, that's great. They'll keep index and everything. They're gonna get a little bit busy up here. We're glad we got in before you got too busy.
I think the phasing is really an important thing to point out. It's not all rebuilt at one time. It looks like may look like a simple drawing with some colors on it. There's a fair amount of effort that's been taken to get to this point. We have to see if we can get an approval before an enormous amount of effort is going to take place right afterwards.
Okay, how many parking spots per hotel?
We were using the City of Hernando standard, because, again, some of those retail spaces could change from one building on a site. I mean, 2 buildings on 2 sites, it could be 1 on a smaller site.
So it'll be whatever the requirements are.
Yes, sir. That's written into the PUD as well.
There's a lot of parking on there.
There is, and I think another thing to point out, we work on, a fair amount of developments, and this is probably the only one that we've had that the green space and the hard space is roughly 50%. The green space here is like 46% of the whole site. It helps that we have the little piece of tile in the end. But we've taken a fair amount of effort. If you look through the precedent imageries, it'll show it as well. We want to heighten levels of landscape and to make it walkable from the hotel to one of the retail spaces and not have to get in a car just to go.
Cuts down daily traffic a lot.
But some of those roads, like some of that road through there is gonna be city road that city's gonna be responsible to maintain, according to the plan.
That's what we're doing for, yeah.
The main road.
Wait, which one? The crossroad or just the three going?
The main one, yeah.
There's really only one road, isn't it?
Just the one east-west?
These right here.
Yes, there's north-south, 3 north-south arteries.
That's what,
Yeah.
That's what we've been meeting about. This will all be city roads. Yeah.
Basically, all the roads would be city, the parking lot would be private.
right, and it was up to them to kind of dictate that, but I just wanted to clearly define, so there's no confusion in 20 years of what is what. And so when we get to, or if we get to the plating stage, we can clearly define what should be public right-of-way and what won't. And then it also dictates some of the locations of those utilities and who will maintain what. So kind of a bunch of different reasons we asked for, to draw that line clearly.
Going backwards for a second on the traffic, one thing we can do before this goes to the board is that we can't get a traffic study done that fast. We can get a traffic impact study. Because the 3 biggest uses we have.
I'm sorry, can you state your name and
I'm
address?
sorry,
Yep,
I'm
fine.
sorry. David Bray, from 2950 Stage Plaza, North Bartlett, 38134.
Thank you. David Bray?
Bray, B-R-A-Y. We get a traffic impact statement because the 3 biggest uses in here, the hotels, they usually, you guys are familiar with traffic studies, and what you're looking for is the peak hour impacts. Well, hotels typically don't impact the peak hour nearly as much. There's a crowd coming in a little bit later or a little bit earlier, but it's not the 7 to 9 in the morning, and it's not the 4 to 6 in the afternoon, which is generally, that's what MDOT's going to be focused at on that intersection and what that traffic impact is going to be. But we can see what those numbers will be and give those numbers to the board and get that to Austin so that he can add it to the staff report before we go there.
That'd be helpful. Which one of those was the Marriott? Phase 1 or the last one on the left?
All 3 are their flag, Marriott has a big umbrella of brands, and I think they're.
Oh, so all 3 would be like a Courtyard and a
Different.
Town, whatever the other one is. Which one was the 6-story, I guess is my question.
The idea is it's the one on the far left.
So it's later phase.
But the 6-story, the column.
I don't remember the vision exactly, to be honest. If there was any particular one, I think we probably, for the sake of the neighborhood, we probably stick to the right.
Oh, I see, okay.
In terms of Sam Patel, 2375 Airways Boulevard, Memphis, Tennessee. In terms of the hospitality component here, and I know talking about how many hotels in the market and things like that. First one, we're confident in doing. It's a second and third even being further out. Does that even happen or not? The market will dictate whether that happens. We're not just gonna go throw out money, just throw out money.
That's why I was asking.
Yeah, and part of this is also, we envision that last piece at least, TB and medical office for someone on, because we've talked to a couple of our friends that we know that, hey, why don't y'all throw a medical office in there? So it's fluid in that side of it. 2, I could probably see happening here in the next 5 to 7 years, right? The third could be probably a stretch, just again, given how city's doing, how North Mississippi is doing, a lot of factors from a hospitality side of it.
Right. I have one more question about going on the permitted uses, and I don't know who wants to. One of the ones is the mobile food vendor park. So is that, I know this is fluid on paper, but is that something that you would consider, and how would that fit into an upscale environment?
You're talking about food trucks?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we have ample amount of parking spaces. It was one of the uses in C2, and we thought there was no reason to strike that if there was an opportunity, not a full-time.
That's what I was wondering, is where you would put a full-time food truck
Not full.
park.
Yeah, it wouldn't be full-time, but it may be something that pulls up for the park area on a particular event or that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
I think that would still have to come back for conditional use.
That's a good point. So it's listed as permitted use. You might, if there is some apprehension, you might want to just kick that to a conditional use category to give it an additional layer of review. If it,
I would say we would need to.
Yeah, conditional, not permanent, just conditional use.
But Austin, as far as you know right now, there's green tea, there's no overall study for the whole segment and plans for widening being looked at.
not that I'm familiar with, other than just our regular cross-section of land and a half on each side.
I don't know if we'll ever see the whole thing widen because they have to go over the interstate.
I am surprised by, I don't see that many. I live in Green Tea subdivision, so it's very personal, but I don't see the trucks I thought I would from the AWG. They just avoid it because of the traffic and the intersection. I don't know what it is, but it hasn't been that great.
I think they go up north 51 to Nesbit.
Yeah, I think that's just easier, way easier.
I want to point out one other thing that might get missed in that drawing there is there's a sort of this bar that parallels green tea that's a pinkish color, and that's a overhead power lines. So that requires us to, the development to be further off of the face of green tea than you might typically otherwise see in other parks. So there's a massive, in our own determination, a massive green buffer there between the commercial development and green tea. It's kind of a natural pre-existing condition that kind of works out in the favor.
What is that, 60, 75 feet, 100 feet or something like that?
75, 100, there we go.
Any other questions for the applicant? Is there anyone here for or against this application? Anyone here for or against this application? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Aldermen of an application by MST Development, owner of the property, for a zoning map amendment, preliminary development plan approval, Ironwood PUD. The subject property is located on the north side of Green Tea Road, east-west side of McInville Road, Section 31 and 32, Township 2, Range 7, based upon the following findings, 1, 2, and 3. Also want to include they need to abide by the forthcoming traffic study, whatever that dictates.
What about the cannabis?
Yeah, I was gonna say the.
Oh, we do want to strike the 3 cannabis uses, 4 cannabis uses, and the food truck park make a conditional use.
Numbers 23 through 25.
22 through 25.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Just to clarify that traffic study,
It's separate.
was that, you were saying what type, not a traffic, not a
Impact
full,
study.
but just a
Impact
traffic
study.
impact?
Traffic impact statement.
Okay, just to make sure it's clear in the,
We should make that, thank you. Not the traffic study, the traffic impact statement.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Thorn,
Aye.
Commissioner Safley,
Aye.
Commissioner Mack,
Nay.
nay,
Nay.
Commissioner Ashworth,
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen.
Aye.
Motion passes. Our next item is a variance, PL 1804, Comfort Inn height variance. Request for a variance to the allowable building height.
I have to recuse myself on this one.
Mr. Cardosi?
Yes, sir. This is PL 1804. The request is for approval of a zoning height variance to allow a four-story hotel with a maximum building height of 65 foot to parapet, which is 30 foot taller than a maximum of 35 feet allowable in a C2 zone designation. This is at 2320 Mackinville Road. Mr. Patel is here tonight on behalf of the owner of the property. As I mentioned, the property is zoned C2, highway commercial, the maximum height of which is 35 feet. The proposal is for 65 feet to account for a parapet and a fourth floor of the hotel. In the discussion portion of the staff report, the applicant did provide response to each of these, but the applicable approval or denial criteria are as follows. Special conditions and circumstances exist that are peculiar to the land, structures, or buildings involved, and not applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. The literal enforcement of these provisions, these standards would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties within the same district under the terms of this ordinance. That the special conditions and circumstances don't result on the action of the applicant, and the granting of variance would not confer any special privilege or otherwise denied by the ordinance, and the applicant did provide responses to each of those. As you see on the attached exhibit detailing the site plan, the building is oriented east to west, so the room visibility, as come up in the past, would be primarily to the north and south of the site. The flag would share an ingress egress easement with lot 1 of that same development, and so if you're familiar with the parcel of the car wash, there is an existing curb cut there. They would share that existing, that would be the only access to Mackinville. The site's oriented where the pool and parking are structured or positioned against the Short Fork Creek in the rear. So there's pretty significant non-disturb area against that creek that they can't touch. And then on the limits of that would be parking, then the pool, and then the 65-foot structure. On the building elevation, you can see the max window height is 39 feet 2 inches. And I did reach out to the applicant to get clarification on the 65 feet that's requested. And with this being the Comfort Suites brand, that extra parapet height is what kind of generated that 65 feet. And so I believe the overall height is 62 or 63 feet, but to be safe, he's requested 65 to screen all utilities on top of the building. And so I did provide, I've got some information for you on some of the surrounding hotels that have been in the area of Home 2, Holiday Inn, and the Fairfield, all of which were roughly the same size of window height. I went back and checked the site plans. The variable is the top parapet, and so it ranges between 52 and 58 feet, depending on the design of the hotel. And as I mentioned, the Comfort brand has that primary element that's keeping it up to 65 for their request. I did include some proposed building materials, because in the past it's come up with what's the building going to look like, and so you can see their preliminary brick samples that they've chosen, and then I included an aerial map to give you an idea of some of the neighbors back to the east and the limits of that creek, to give you an idea of the buffer yard that's to remain. That concludes my staff report, and Mr. Patel's here tonight as well if you have any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Cardoso? Would the applicant please come forward? State your name and address.
So Mr. Patel's here as well. My name is Sapan Kariwala. My address is 2268 Pine Tree Loop, Hernando.
My name name is Chinta Patel, 8098 Belladonna Circle, Olive Branch, Mississippi, 38654.
Just for clarity, help me out, the overall height with the parapet is 62 to 63 feet?
Yes, sir.
You're asking for 65 to be safe?
Just to be safe, yes.
Okay. What is the height of the building without the parapet? Because if I understood Austin's presentation, the design of the Comfort Suites parapet is larger.
I think it's about 44 feet.
So the actual building is, okay, and I may have missed that in the staff report.
So what brings it up to
Sorry.
65 feet is that sign,
That's that tower thing, yeah.
tower.
Yeah.
Is that that's a Comfort Suites model kind of?
That's
That's
the
their-
Rise and Shine ones, prototype
44.
they came out with.
That's their latest
That's-
prototype.
Yeah, that's their new branding.
It's probably like the elevator shaft and stuff.
What do we determine the height of that center building part is? What's the height of that? 40,
Say that again, I'm sorry.
what's the height of that center building piece?
So the top of the windows is 39 feet, and there's additional 5 foot.
I see,
just
okay.
Room height for head clearance, and then above that would be the additional parapet, and then this, and so, like you said, I guess 40 to 45 feet head room, and then everything above that would be to screen utilities.
Would that be on both sides of the building or just one?
All 4.
Yeah, all the way around.
But the parapet with the sign is only facing south and north,
Correct.
where there's no,
Right,
there's no
neighbors.
neighbors, there, well,
Yeah.
commercial neighbors.
Commercial neighbors.
Commercial
No
neighbors,
residential neighbors, yes.
Oh, so that's on both sides?
Yes.
North and south?
but not facing the subdivision.
No.
Is there any signage going towards the subdivision? I saw the pool right there, on the backside of it. It's a parking, but there's no signage or anything. Yeah. No lighting towards the neighborhood.
There is a sign on the west side, though? Facing
Obviously,
Mackin
Mackin
Hill.
Bill's
Yeah, outside, right, I think it's,
Yeah. Now, is the sign, because we don't have a view of that, so the sign on the
yeah,
west,
you'll be on that,
is
yeah,
that lighted?
right there.
Is that a lighted sign as well?
Yes.
What's across the street from there?
The car wash is right in front of that, the Take 5.
I think the apartment
And then-
complex,
Oh, the
Is it
apartments,
the
yeah.
apartment complex or that, the alteration place maybe, right, the clothes?
kind of both right there,
both
yeah.
right there, yeah.
What's the distance from your property line to the parking lot where the pool is? How far is that?
I mean, from the creek, from the neighborhood area?
The creek to the park, I guess, y'all are gonna keep all those trees
Yes.
that are
Yes,
there?
we can't disturb the creek and all the trees are back there.
And what's the distance? I'm having a hard time.
So some of the trees will come out though, right?
This looks to be
Need
about
the
60
engineer
feet
here.
from the parking lot,
Uh-huh.
and then roughly the same to the pool, so maybe 150 feet from edge of parking lot to the building. So I'm just going, judging roughly by the scale.
Right.
I think he's asking like from the creek to the parking lot.
The creek itself is probably another 60, 70 feet.
The center line of the creek, yeah, at least, because there's a buffer on either side.
And then there's sewer lines behind there as well, so we can't really disturb those.
To my knowledge, this would be the tallest variance that we've granted, although I understand that the building's actually only 40-something feet tall. It's the sign.
What was the one that they were requesting over there behind Domino's?
53 feet, I thought it was.
No, I think he said 58 feet.
58 over
Yes.
that one over there?
Yeah.
Who was the one that was 53?
There was, so Holiday Inn Express, the top of parapet was 58 feet. Fairfield originally requested 65, but that plan's fallen through, and it was reduced by the Board of Aldermen. And then the Home 2 Suites is 55 and a half to the top of the parapet.
Two, that's one over by Arby's.
Yeah, so the one that's under construction.
Well, the sign is what makes it. The building didn't necessarily, but the,
Still 4 stories.
yeah, it's still a 4-story building.
So how many
85
rooms are,
units.
so 85?
85, yeah.
Yeah, that's what, Keen said, so.
And again, you know, like the developer said, that's almost $100,000 in taxes for the city.
Any other questions for the applicant?
No, but I do have one for Austin. I guess all the construction like this will follow the same lighting guidelines as far as.
Photometric plan, landscape plan, it would all fall in line.
And the buffering on here is a lot greater than the sports complex.
Right, right.
I think it should be okay with that.
So here's a question you probably won't be able to answer, but you said this was a new prototype for the Comfort Suites?
Yes.
Is there, I guess the height, really, and I think I'm not speaking for the aldermen, but I'm guessing they're gonna have a little bit of a concern about the height in that neighborhood. But if it's only, does it have to be that high? Is there a way to knock 5 feet, 8 feet off of it?
That's something we'll have to go back to the franchise and see if they'll grant us a waiver.
And there's no windows facing the rear of the property, right? Just, okay.
There is an exit to the pool, obviously.
Right, yeah, I'm down below, yeah.
But just by the looks of that, and again, if that's correct, scale-wise, that gray section there above that top floor window, triple window there in the center, it's just like a lot of unused space right there. That sign could come down and bring that parapet wall that high. I mean, I guess we've got the question for Comfort Suites, what's the value of having that tower piece sitting there if it's just to raise the sign higher in the air? When you're in this neighborhood, why do we have to have a sign that high in the air?
I think they mainly use it to cover the mechanical.
Yeah, but the parapet is already there to hide the mechanical. I'm talking about that extra gray section. that goes-
Yeah, is there any confirmation of what's actually,
The elevator shaft is probably taller too.
but is that for sure elevator shaft? Or is that speculation on that part?
I guess it could be approved at the same height as the highest one that we made before, if that's what you're going at.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get ahead of the alderman, right? I'm just trying to think.
So this would, unless it's appealed, it would stay with y'all. It's a variance.
Right.
The other one went to the alderman because it was
Oh,
denied,
that's
because they
right.
were wanting
That's right.
5-story, like 5 rooms.
Yep.
That's right.
And now that one's not even happening.
I
Because
just-
they found water, some kind of water columns or
The
something.
soils report came back bad.
Have y'all had that soil report yet? No?
I'm just throwing out consideration. It's not one way or another. It just seems like there's, what value of having a sign that high in the air in this neighborhood?
Just they're
If it was, I mean, if this
brand
hotel
is
was,
so particular about their, you know, brand image. I mean, same thing as the city, if we're developing a brand for the city image, then, you know, it's held by you guys, saying, hey, look, that's our brand, and you want to stick with it.
I could see this at the previous development, if this was one out by the interstate or out by Macville, where you needed something a little higher to get attention. But we're in the city, so I don't know that there needs to be a sign that high in the air. Unless y'all have other thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, I mean,
You can always scale it back too, if you don't feel like the full 65 needed, and if the brand, proved less than.
Well, I mean, right now, we're looking at 62, and, you know, like I said, Austin said it was 62 or 63, and we're asking for 65, so maybe there's room to work, but we don't know.
But that would be, you'd have to go back to the
We'd have to go back
franchise
to the
first,
franchise and
right?
saying, let us drop down, you know, a few feet.
What was the last one we approved, 58? Is that something you can take back and say, can we go down to 58?
We could try and talk to Brian and see if they'll let us do it.
You want us to, should we table that in that case, or should we
That's what I was thinking.
approve it as a 58?
What do you got?
I don't know.
What's that?
Anybody for it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It's procedural, if y'all want to approve 58 and then let them go back and then they'll make a new application if they need more.
Yeah, I think that maybe, what do you think? Like, at least get the approval instead of having some conditional or having to come back and then rediscuss this, right?
Oh, that's right, so if they approve it, then there's no need to come back.
Right, so we don't have that, and then if they don't, then we can answer that question, saying, look, this is what the reasoning is of why they're saying they need this.
Yeah, it just seems like each hotel, we keep going up another foot, another foot, another foot, and we just keep increasing the variance height. Now we're 35 feet over the ordinance. So we gotta draw a line somewhere. Especially with the number of hotels being proposed in the area.
Well, I mean, the stories are not changing.
No,
It's
it's,
still
yeah, I mean.
And that's what,
This is a facade, I just, you know.
Yeah. This is different from the last application. It was also.
What's Hampton Inn's height over there? What's that one? Maybe that's the 53 I was thinking.
That was the tallest one at the time. I don't know.
55 or 6 or something. And it's on the interstate.
Mm-hmm.
But it just, like a snowball effect, once one gets approved right down the street.
But I wonder if, you know, if the elevation of the property itself is higher, it's also maybe probably from road or.
Well, I don't know, but this, where this would be sitting is kind of on an
It's-
elevated spot as well. Because it's gonna be kind of overlooking Tri-County, it's gonna be overlooking.
Yeah, all that stuff.
So
yeah, all
it's
that
gonna
stuff.
give it, it's gonna kind of stand out and have prominence anyway.
On the north side, for sure, that property's all
Right.
way lower.
It's the best spot, well, I mean, it's my personal opinion, it's the best spot right in there to put
It's just, there's just not, we just don't have much room, and we can't expand the footprint because just the way the design is falling, or the creek being there, so just we can't utilize any of the land besides what's shown on.
Right.
It's optimized as best as we could.
Any other questions for the applicant? Is there anyone here to speak for or against this application? All right, seeing none. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve zoning height variance requested by, is it Jintu Patel, agent of the property, to allow variance to a allowable building height of no more than 58 feet on the contingents that the franchise, how do we word that? Allows a reduction of 58 feet rather than the allowed 35 feet as detailed in the applicant's proposal. Subject property is located east of Mackingvale Road, north of Creekside Boulevard, more specifically 2320 Mackingvale Road, Section 17, Township 3, Range 7, based upon the following findings, A through D.
Okay.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Staffley?
Aye.
Commissioner Max?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion
very
passes. Yep, thank you. All right, you want to, somebody want to get Shay? They won't let me vote on anything tonight. She already told me I couldn't make motions. I wanted to make a motion. I wanted to make a motion. All right, our next item of business, PL 1805, request for final plat approval, Creekside subdivision, Phase 2, 1, lots 2.63 acres.
Yes, so this is PL 1805, final plat request for Creekside Commercial subdivision, one lot on 2.63 acres, on the north side of Creekside Boulevard, east of Mackville. Jones Davis Engineering, representing Mark England, owner of the property, is the applicant on the subdivision. It's funny how all interrelated the applications were tonight, but this is the previous site of the zoning variance we were just discussing for the Marriott site. And so the north side of the Creekside Boulevard, the soils report came back unfavorable for that type of facility. And so the request tonight is simply for final plat approval, for us to plat and record to prep the site for development. The bulk requirements are listed in your staff report, and as presented, the lot meets or exceeds all the development requirements of the C2 district. The same buffer yard that we were just discussing in the last application is applicable here to the same creek, just south of the existing property. And then all the standard subdivision approval or denial criteria are listed 1 through 9. That just covers all of our required improvements and associated planning requirements. And then this recommendation tonight will be heard at the Board of Alderman meeting on the April 16th meeting. The plat is included in your staff report, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Cardoza? Would the applicant please come forward, state your name and address?
Mr. Chairman, Robbie Jones, Jones Davidson Associates, 8849 Center Street, South Haven City. We're just trying to help Mark get that commercial lot platted and recorded. It's, I'm pretty familiar with where it's at, so we will bring a good business with that lot.
No question, I'm just a little confused. The applicant's application says subdivision, is it lot 1 or lot 2?
It's lot 2, but it's
One lot.
One lot.
Lot
It's
2.
Lot 2 is the second phase of the commercial subdivision. Lot 1 is the one just to the
West of it, yeah.
west. Yep.
Any questions for the applicant? Is there anyone here who would like to speak for or against this application? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to grant final plat approval to Creekside Commercial Subdivision, Lot 2, 2.63 total acres, located on the north side of Creekside Boulevard, east of Mackinville, north of East Commerce Street, in Section 17, Township 3 South, Range 7 West, based upon the following submitted plat generally conforms with the city's requirement code, which is subject to the following 1 through 9.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Staffley?
Aye.
Commissioner Max?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item for approval. Yep. PL 1806, request for final plat approval, Hernando Hills, Phase 2, final revision.
Yes, sir. This is PL 1806. The request is to revise the existing final plat of Hernando Hills Phase 2 first revision. The city of Hernando is a current owner, and so this is a staff-presented application as a result of an action of the Board of Aldermen. So the original lot was listed as parkland or common open space on the original plat. I've included that in your staff report for reference. The lot was voted to be sold by the Board of Aldermen at a previous meeting and has generated this request before it's sold to be a buildable lot. And so the city engineers generated the lot, the new plat of the lot, and all the existing easements on the lot to create the buildable area so it can be sold. So I guess technically I am the applicant. I'm presenting a request to revise this designation of park to be a 1 acre lot.
No motion to deny in there.
It's all in. I would kind of be interested how the board takes that.
That'd be fun. We'd all lose our jobs.
I do have one comment about this thing, because I pass by it every day. The outlet for that pond goes through this. Have you noticed that? There's maybe a need for a drainage easement to go somewhere to tear that water through this lot. I don't know.
I can ask.
Just as a heads up or whatever.
Is there anyone here to speak for or against this application?
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Yes, ma'am. Come on.
Where is this property? This is not what adjoining Dr. Seymour's property is.
It's across the street. It's the lot underneath the dam. It's, the empty lot, if you're coming up Green Tree Lake on the right-hand side, there's an empty lot between the homes beneath the dam.
Okay.
It's that piece.
Because I know he owns across the street where the tower is, and then, so I was trying to figure out where this piece of property was.
This would be north of that, before you get to the curve on the right-hand side.
Okay. That's all I need.
All right, do I have a motion?
Motion. Motion to recommend approval for final plat approval of Hernando Hills Phase 2 First Revision by City of Hernando, subject to staff conditions, subject properties listed as parcel 1, 307-307-070-0006000, located on the east side, Green Tea Boulevard, north of Vidalia Road.
Second.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Safley?
Aye.
Commissioner Mack?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
Real quick, I did present the draft ordinance that I brought to y'all from sign ordinance to the Board of Aldermen, and they've taken it under advisement for 30 days to get input. And so it's not too late. If y'all see anything, if hear anything, let me know.
It's not too late.
I looked at it again, because I was gonna try to, but I think it's a political issue. As long as we kind of negated any fallout from that, I think that's all we do.
I sent you everything I had, so.
Since I wasn't here last
You
week,
said
our
it
last
was,
meeting,
You said
were
it
there a
was-
lot of changes to the sign thing?
No, sir, it's basically the same. We had some verbiage changes, some typos. There was a recommendation to not jump straight to a ticket to require a warning. We'll pass that along, but nothing substantial. But if you see anything before in the next 30 or 60 days, let me know.
That would be fun. If you got something to do about it first.
Motion to adjourn. Yeah, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
I was back
Third
in
and fourth.
The other one was like information. There was nothing indicating what size.